Hello everyone, welcome back to Economics with Jagdeep. I'm Jagdeep, and if you're watching this, then you are either preparing for your IGCSE Economics exams or probably you got one of these questions wrong and you just want to know why. Either way, you are just in the right place. Today we are tackling questions 3 to 7 from Cambridge IGCSE question paper 12 0455 from November 2024. And listen, I just don't want you to tell the answers. I will ensure that you never get these questions wrong. So I'll give you the breakthrough of every option, whether correct or incorrect. Plus I'll be giving you a few yes, no or true, false questions throughout the video. Don't be shy and drop your answers in the comment. I read every single one, and if you're wrong, I shall reply back to you. Alright, so without wasting any time further, let's get started. Alright, so now we have question number 3. So question number 3 says, the diagram shows a production possibility curve for an economy that produces two goods X and Y. Now which point shows the greatest opportunity cost of producing one more good X? Correct? So they are asking us which option amongst these would have the highest opportunity cost of producing one additional unit of good X. Okay, before I reveal the answer, here's your first comment challenge. True or false? On a single PPC, the opportunity cost of producing more of one good stays the same at every point. Drop in your true or false in the comments. Well, the answer is the key for this particular question, because in this case we don't have a linear PPC curve but a concave PPC curve, which is technically bowed outward, correct? And on a bowed outward curve, you would know that as you move along the PPC curve, the opportunity cost of producing one more additional good that is listed here would tend to increase. So here the correct answer is C. Now why C is the correct answer? Let's take a look. Now PPC curve is bowed outwards, which means that it is getting steeper from, let us say, around here. It is a little steeper in slope, correct? A steeper curve means as you move along the curve from point B onwards towards here, as you produce more of good X, you would want to give up more of good Y. That's what makes the opportunity cost of producing at point C a little higher than every other point. So point C is the steepest part of the curve, furthest along toward good X on the horizontal X-axis, correct? So the sacrifice of good Y per extra unit of good X is greatest over here. Now let's take a look at why other points aren't. Okay, now at point A, we see that point A is right on the top over here, and if we see the slope of the curve, it's approximately a little flattened out. I won't say absolutely flat, but it is almost flat. So that means commodity Y is getting sacrificed, but the quantity that is getting sacrificed is very small. Now if you see the distance here and here, it is automatically giving you a visual representation that we are gaining much more of X and sacrificing very little of commodity Y. So this definitely is not the correct answer, because the opportunity cost is not the highest. Let's take a look at option B. So at option B, we can say it's probably in the middle of this curve, and we do see that it is getting a little steeper, but it is not as much steep as you see over here. So you may have an opportunity cost here, but it is still not the highest. What I'll do is I'll just keep a reference for you all to take a look at the opportunity costs. All right, and likewise, let me put this same segment for C as well, so it makes a little clearer as to what is happening. Okay, so now when we take a look at option D, which is again not the correct one, it is in the point D kind of is lying inside the PPC curve, and that means this is inefficient use of resources. The economy is not operating at its full potential, whereas we really wanted to take a look at what is the potential that economy holds. And since it is not on the PPC curve, it is very difficult to identify the opportunity cost at point D. So if we can take a look again, the distance between these two segments, the distance between these two segments, and the distance between here. So we are sacrificing more of Y and gaining very little of commodity X. So C is the point where you would get the greatest opportunity cost. Clear? Now let's take a look at question number 4. So question number 4 reads, a period of bad weather leads to a failure of rice crop. What is the effect on the market for rice? Before I move on, again a comment challenge. So you need to give a yes or no answer. So when supply falls, does the price go up? Say yes or no for this. Okay. Now based on the options that we have here, the correct answer for this question is a shortage of rice and a rise in its price. Now let's take a look at the chain of logic, what is happening over here. So now what has happened? We have a bad weather, correct? A bad weather means there is some damage to the rice crop, right? I'll just write in short form. So because of the damage to the rice crop, that means output has gone down, and because the output has gone down, that means the supply is decreasing, a reduction in supply because of a non-price factor. Bad weather over here means the supply curve would shift to the left. Now let's see, how does that look on a diagram? So we have the demand, the supply. I will just roughly label the curves and the axes. So this is your initial equilibrium, PE and QE, and when the supply curve is shifting to the left because of a crop failure, what has happened? This is S1, this is your new price, and this is your new quantity. What has happened to the price? It went up. What happened to the quantity? It fell. Correct? Now, what happens at the equilibrium price PE when the curve has shifted from here to here? We see that there is a shortage in the market. So I'm going to use a different color now. So ideally this is your quantity demanded, and this here becomes your quantity supplied. What are we seeing? Quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded, and this is what you call as a shortage. Correct? So there's a shortage in the market, and we've already seen that the price has gone up. So B is the correct answer over here. Now let's see why others are not the correct answer. Okay. So option A says there is a shortage, which is correct, but there's a fall in price. Do we see a fall in price over here? A fall in price will never happen when there is a shortage. A shortage will always mean that the prices are pushed up. So if there is something in scarce availability, there's a scarcity of something, people would generally compete for it and bid the price up, not down. So option A is ruled out. Likewise, option C, it says a surplus and a fall in price. Now we can never have a surplus if the supply curve is shifting to the left, correct? Because the crop has been damaged, there's a failure, correct? So supply curve would never shift to the right. The moment supply curve shifts to the right, that's when you would see we would have a reduction in price and a surplus. But since the supply curve did not shift to the right, that means option C is also invalid. And option D says a surplus with a rising price. Now there are two problems. First of all, the surplus is wrong because we are getting a shortage, and second, even if there was a surplus, it would never bring the prices up, it would bring the price down. So D also stands to be ruled out. Alright, so the correct option here is B, which is a shortage of rice and a rise in its price. Correct? Now students, if you are finding this video helpful, please consider using the thanks button below. Your support is crucial for creating more high quality free content for students just like you. Thank you for all your support so far. Also, if you are watching this video on your mobile phone, please hit the button so YouTube could push this video to more learners just like you. Let's take a look at question number 5. So here is the diagram. We see that the demand curve is shifting to the right from D1 to D2. The question is, what would cause the demand for coffee to change from D1 to D2? Now, before I move in explaining the pointers again, a true and false question again. A rise in price of a substitute good increases the demand for the main commodity. And if possible, if you could give a real world substitute for coffee. All right. Now, in this question, the correct answer is B. B says a rise in price of substitute drinks. So option B says a rise in price for substitute drinks. Now, what has happened in the diagram? The demand curve has shifted to the right. Shifting to the right means that at each and every price now more is getting demanded. Let us say this is the price. So now this is what is getting demanded instead of this. Correct? That's what an increase in demand would mean. And that's what the curve is doing here. There's a shift in the demand curve to the right, meaning an increase in demand. Now, this shift in the demand to the right is giving us an information that consumers are finding coffee more attractive or more affordable, correct? And if there is a rise in the price of a substitute commodity, maybe there's an increase in the price of tea or maybe some energy drinks or maybe any other drink that could serve the same purpose. If this is happening, then coffee would become more attractive, more cheaper, and hence consumers would want to switch over to coffee, causing the demand curve to shift to the right. Now, option A says a good coffee harvest. This is more towards the productive side, and hence it is going to impact the supply of the commodity, not the demand for it. So obviously this does not relate to the question at all, because question is focusing on the demand. Option C, a rise in wages of coffee workers. Again, this is going to impact the supply, because wages is going to impact the cost of production. It is going to raise it, and because of which the supply curve would shift to the left. Now, this is not what the diagram talks about, so C also is not the correct answer. Now, option D is a little sneaky, because the majority of the time students might not read it to its completion and may just go ahead and click this, but it's a successful advertising campaign for tea. Now, if tea is getting advertised, do you think people will demand more coffee? I'm sure nobody would, right? People would demand more tea. So that is going to shift the demand curve for coffee to the left, not to the right. Hence, D also is not the correct answer. So to answer this, we just need to remember a movement along the curve, whether it is contraction or extension. It is because of price increasing or decreasing, but a shift in the demand curve will always happen due to change in non-price factors. Clear? Now let's take a look at question number 6. So question number 6 says the table shows the supply for a product at different prices. So we have the table here, we have prices going up from 10 to 18, supply units also increasing from 120 to 280. Question reads, if the price changes from 12 to 14, from here to here, what will be the change in supply? Alright, now before we move on to the options here, another true and false question for you. So when price rises, the quantity supplied increases, and this is called an extension of supply. Drop a true or false in the comments. The correct answer for number 6 is C. Supply will extend by 40 units and there will be a movement up along the same supply curve. Now, why is this happening? Let's take a look at the question again. So price is changing from 12 to 14 and they are asking what is the change in the supply. So the change in supply is basically the difference between these two. So the difference between these two is 40 units ideally, and that's the change in supply. Any change in the price of the commodity would cause a movement along the curve. Let's take a look at the diagrammatic representation. So at price 12 it is 160 and at price 14 it is 200. So this is how your supply curve is. So an increase in price is causing an increase in quantity supplied and there is a movement upwards along the same curve. So the change is 40 and there's a movement along the same curve upwards. Let's take a look at why other options aren't correct. So option A reads supply will contract by 40 units. The amount is correct, but there's no contraction happening because price is increasing and the law of supply says other factors remaining constant, price increases, quantity supplied also increases, price falls, quantity supplied also falls. So if price is increasing, which is in this case from 12 to 14, there cannot be a contraction. Alright, so this is ruled out. B, supply will contract by 200 units. Now 200 is not the change but the actual amount over here. So there is this amount in itself is wrong, and there's an inward shift in the supply curve. So there's no shifting happening here because there is a change in price and not the non-price factors. Correct? Likewise, option D, supply will extend by 200 units. Again, the wrong number because 200 is the total units that are supplied at price 14, not the change. And there will be an outward shift. So the shifting again will not happen because there is no change in the other factors affecting supply. Non-price factors do not change. Clear? Students, if you still struggle answering the MCQ questions in your IGCSE papers, consider joining one of my online tutoring sessions where I could help you understand the approach that you need to adopt to answer these questions. I'm currently helping students from multiple countries like UAE, Singapore, Qatar, and Hong Kong. I invite you to contact me directly at the number displayed on your screen. Do not miss out on a free 30-minute session with me. Let's take a look at the last question for today, which is question number 7. So question is asking which changes would move the equilibrium in the diagram from point X to point Z. Point X is over here and point Z is over here. Now these are the options. So the correct answer for this is option C, which says an increase in demand, which is this, and a decrease in supply, which is, let us say, this is the new supply curve. So you do have the new equilibrium at point Z. So C is the correct answer. Let's take a look at why A, B and D aren't. I'll be using a different shade for this. So it reads a decrease in demand, which is this, and a decrease in supply, which is this. In this case, this is where you get the new equilibrium, and in this case, ideally it depends upon what kind of magnitude of change these forces have, whether there's a bigger change in demand and a smaller change in supply, then the respective changes in price and quantity would be seen. But based on what kind of change I have done, you get this situation, which probably is not making any change in the price but maybe some change in the quantity. Correct? So this is not what we wanted. We wanted this equilibrium point. So this is ruled out. Option A is ruled out. The next is option B. So option B reads a decrease in demand with an increase in supply. So a decrease in demand and an increase in supply would do this. So we do have, I think, no change in quantity relative to the earlier one, but the price has gone down. As per the diagram, we want an increase in price. So these changes do not do that. It does not lead to an increase in price. So again, option B is not the correct one. And finally, option D, an increase in demand with an increase in supply. So we do have an increase in demand already, but an increase in supply would be something like this. So in this case, this is where the quantity is and this is where the price is. So there's no change in price. We did want to see an increase in price at equilibrium point Z. So no, D also is not the correct answer. So likewise, in this question, which is question number 7, the correct answer is C. Now the task for you is to go back to those comment challenges. I want to see your answers for all the 4 questions. And if this video helped you, smash that like button and subscribe to Economics with Jagdeep. I'll be bringing in more walkthroughs, concept videos and exam prep videos in the next coming sessions. Until then, bye now. Take care.